Good afternoon, members. I'm Bob Dorsheimer, one of the co-chairs here for the task force. And if my other co-chair could introduce themselves. She's coming off mute.
As soon as I can take off the mute button. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Raquel Garcia, and I'm co-chair for the Behavioral Health Advisory Council. Happy to have you all here today.
So we both welcome everyone today and the Coloradans around the state that have dialed in today. So I'm going to get us started. And what we normally do is kind of talk about the parameters of the agenda. We talk about our norms and values. We do have a slide that can come up to talk about our norms and values. So let me slide over here to see if it's there. All right, so welcome to the BHAAC Advisory Council. All of these meetings are recorded for task force members. We will be talking to task force members about where to find that in their Google Docs. We also do place the agenda online, and the agendas will remain online for our visitors and people that would like to see what the agendas are. So does someone want to walk us through what our values are and kind of talk a little bit about what our norms are? Next slide. Okay, so everyone with ADA needs, please remember about the ACL interpretation as well as the captions. And you should have gotten your agendas today separately, as well as an invite separately, so that way it's not as confusing and you can kind of break everything out. So we ask everyone kindly when speaking to raise your hand, so that way you can finish your thoughts and we can address your thoughts so we can have some order to the meeting. We'll be taking attendance today, and we really value inclusion and input from the community. So this is a dialogue process that's important, and we definitely want to hear from everybody. Group agreements are listen and engage respectfully. Differences of opinion are natural and useful. Have an open mind, please. Be curious and be bold. Everyone has an equal voice. Everyone is valuable. We appreciate everyone's contribution. Take space, make space. Keep to time and the agenda. Start and end meetings on time. And if you're using acronyms, hey, just let us know what they mean, because there's a lot of acronyms that we use lately in the community, and things are changing. So we just want to make sure that we all are on the same footing. That being said, I'm going to walk us through the rest of the agenda. When I'm done walking us through the agenda, I'm going to officially ask for roll call and attendance. We'll approve the minutes for all members. If you look at your agenda, there is a link to your Google Docs. So you'll see your 12/31/23, that's supposed to be 22 minutes will be in the folder. And those are the minutes that we're going to be reviewing. Then at about 1:25, we're going to talk about how we're going to have dialogue with the community, and that we're building out a form that we will discuss today, and how the community can interface and get questions or feedback or suggestions to us. Either the task force members and executive committee will handle that, and/or we'll pass it on to our excellent state support staff. So we're going to talk about that today around 1:25. We're going to talk about the governance committee. So we're a brand new task force. We're building out governance, bylaws, rules for us. That will be done by our chairperson in the work group, Tasha. Miss Tasha will do that for us. My co-chair, Raquel, will talk about that. We've launched an executive committee, and we have a charter to discuss and for people to review today. So Raquel will walk us through that today. So lots of progress we're making as we're getting organized. Then it's going to go to Angela, and we're going to start talking about engagement with the public. That's the form that I was talking about that will be posted on our website. and we'll get dialogue from members about, as well as how we're going to be interfacing with the community. Next, Catherine is going to talk to us about a quick update on the BHA funding opportunities, the BHA grant review, which all of those amazing behavioral health ARPA dollars that went out, and we all spent Christmas writing and getting them in on time. Then we'll hear from our fantastic state commissioner on all of the updates that is going on, everything Dr. Madlock has been doing. So we'll welcome Dr. Madlock approximately at 2:30. We're going to take a break, 10-minute break, take care of ourselves. Then we're going to go over the 3-year vision, the strategic plan that has been posted at the end of January. Remember, it's a fluid document, but we needed to get started. So it is posted. It is on the website. Please spend time reviewing it. And then we're going to go to the last part, which is a more informal part of our agenda, and that's called What's Going On in the Community. We would like community updates in prevention, recovery, and treatment. This is also a less formal part of our agenda, so that way task force members can ask questions of other task force members, and that we can have dialogue on things that have been presented to us today. So towards the end of the meeting is where you'll see task force members get more involved in dialogue. So this is our agenda today. It's a pretty packed agenda. And just as a reminder for everybody that is on the call today that is not a member of the task force, public comment will be approximately 1:25. At this time, I call for roll call and attendance.
Bob, this is Marina, and I will do your roll call here today. Good afternoon, everyone. Marina Borisov, Strategic Project Manager, and I'm going to go down the list. Robert Bob Dorsheimer.
Present.
Raquel Garcia.
Present.
Jesse Pocock.
Present.
Dr. Stacy Oberly. Not here. Noor Shafi. Not here. Seth Watkins.
Present.
Thank you. Ron Lee Leal.
Present.
Ash Annan. Jamie Ulrich.
Sorry, present.
Oh, Ash is here. Thank you. Jamie Ulrich.
Yes, this is Jamie. I am in the car and I will be on camera in about 45 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Camero Vigil DeTeo.
Present.
Tasha Konkar.
Present.
Raina Shaner. Catherine Washington.
Present.
Tina Rowe. Carolyn Hall.
Present.
Maria Martinez.
Present.
Robert Archuleta.
Present.
Karen Renee Anderson. Selwyn Whiteskunk. Okay, and Andreas Sivanik. I apologize if I mispronounced that. Thank you. That's it, Bob. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other housekeeping items I need to be aware of before I move to calling of the minutes?
Bob, just wanted to point out the time in the agenda for the BHA grant review involvement, because those are still ongoing. We maybe shouldn't be discussing that today. So we were hoping we could table it and bring it up in another, like a future meeting. to talk about once the grant review process is complete.
Great. When I get that to that part of an agenda, then I will officially ask to modify and suspend that part of the agenda today.
Great, thank you.
So task force members, please make a note that when we get to that part, I'm going to be asking for a motion to suspend that part of our agenda and to move it to a future date. To our state partners, are there any other housekeeping items I need to be aware of? All right, task force members, we are at the point of now reviewing our December minutes. It does say 12/21/23, but it is 22. You can find those documents in your Google folder that you all have. So at this time, I'm going to give us a minute or two, more like a minute. Please review. Let us know if there's any edit, changes, or suggestions to December minutes. So please review those now. Thank you. Somebody make a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes.
Discussion on December 21st minutes. I hear no discussion. Please, by a show of hands, put them up in the chat so that way we can count and close this agenda item and officially vote for December 2022 minutes. And we do have quorum today. Okay, I've reached a point of counting, which means I've reached the point of counting to quorum. Motion passes. Minutes from December 21st, 22 are adopted. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. The next part of our agenda is talking about public comment. We've been working on the public comment part of our task force. We feel that it's really important to have dialogue. We're made up of people with lived experience as well as our family members, and we are blessed to be appointed to this task force. So in talking with the state, we felt it was really an important part of the process to hear from people around Colorado as to behavioral health needs, things that are working, things that aren't working, things that we can continue to address as community members to our partners at the BHA. So the part that the task force members, which we'll have a conversation a little later on about, is a form that you can fill out. It'll be on our website, which is our task force website. So we're looking for feedback today, but that will go to something that's called executive committee. The executive committee will review that information. And then from there, if it's information that is not appropriate for us to handle, as we are task force members made up of the community, we'll definitely pass that on to our colleagues at the BHA to make sure there's appropriate response. If I could ask BHA staff to take it a little further and describe the process, that would be fantastic as to public comment and how the state is going to be handling it. I wanted to talk about our piece as task force members, but Angela, Yumiko?
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. I mean, I think what you had said, where we have some time in the agenda today where we're going to actually share screens and look at the newly created BHAAC form, which will end up on the site that I just posted in the chat. We've set up a the BHAC Executive Committee actually talked about a structure in which to review that information as it comes in. And so we're still kind of finalizing, or the Executive Committee is still finalizing that process. So that'll be part of the conversation today as to where does this information go, who sees it, things like that. But it will be an open form that anyone can complete once we've finalized it, or once BHAC has finalized it. And then the Executive Committee will decide on the final process for form review. But the purpose of the form is really to make sure that anyone in the public, like you said, Bob, can reach out to the BHAC members. That could be questions, it could be comments, it could be topic ideas. And then the Executive Committee will be responsible for reviewing that forms, incorporating that information into the upcoming BHAC agendas, or forwarding on to the BHA as appropriate and necessary. Was that helpful?
Yes, thank you for further explanation as to what we'll be talking about with the process. But as we said earlier, transparency and getting to the public and being with the public is really where the BHA came from, as well as the Advisory Council. So that being said, my friend and colleague has a report out to do on how we are building governance to govern ourselves as a new Advisory Council. So Miss Tasha, are you ready to come off a camera and give us your fantastic report today on governance and bylaws?
Yes, I'm ready to come off camera. We are moving forward. We have got a lot of progress made, and we're continuing to make progress. We've all worked together as a team, and we're coming along. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, our meetings are bi-weekly or bi-monthly or every other week. And so within the next month or so, we hope to have that finalized, at the progression that the momentum that we're going with that, and getting this done and taken care of. And I'm pleased with it. And I want to thank all of my team and everybody working together. We're getting this done. Thank you.
Everybody that's on our bylaws and our governance committee, we thank you for your hard work, meeting every other week and under Tasha's leadership. Tasha's a lot of fun, by the way, everyone. She's really full of light and has got a great sense of humor. Next up is Vice Chair Raquel to talk to us about what we've launched and our charter on the creation of executive committee. Miss Raquel.
Hello, everybody. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna rearrange some screens real quick. I got like all these things up. Yeah, happy to also, thanks Tasha for the work you do on the governance committee. I love being in those meetings and learning, and it really helps to like take it in bite-sized pieces from in-depth understanding. So I really appreciate you leading that team. We have created the BHAAC Executive Committee charter. We're working on it now. It is a charter. The purpose of the Executive Committee includes the following. It will serve as the thoughtful decision-making body to guide the council overall, including setting the agenda for the upcoming council meetings like these that we're here in today. Based on the member feedback, it will be involving public comment, because that's what we're going to use to make that agenda. So it's a combination of like what the public wants. It's a combination of what our leadership at the BHA wants. It's a combination of what you guys want. And so we're just going to use all of the pieces to formulate an agenda every single session. We'll identify the process for receiving and reviewing written and live public comments and determining the appropriate responses. That form that Angelina will walk us through, where we get to partially, my inbox can't be the way everybody wants to reach all of you. And so we created a centralized location where we can all go through and look at what public comments are and take our time to respond to those. We'll review applications for BHAAC work groups and make recommendations regarding membership. We'll discuss any request of BHAAC members prior to bringing to council that will result in additional resources of BHA staff and council members. So anything that like is asking more of us, right? And we'll develop and strategize council responses to community events and emergencies. And then bring to the full council for your approval to see if you back kind of what we said when there's like public remarks and if we feel like we want to say something on behalf of lived experienced people. And then we'll identify a process for BHA leadership proposing agenda topics. So it's really, we just have starting this charter. It's a standing ongoing working committee. We think it'll be longer than 12 months. We're looking at monthly meetings right now. And our ideal size is, I think we're looking at 5 to 7 members in that committee. Catherine's sitting on that committee. Myself, Seth is on that committee. Rob is on that, or Bob, I always look at yours, Bob, because you put Robert in front of yours and it messes me up. Bob's on that committee. And so we're just beginning to spearhead this. And so, of course, as always, your input is important to us. So we want to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the report out. As promised to our public, I did say today at 1:25 we'll be opening up to the public. I moved the agenda around because we were running a little ahead of schedule. It is now 1:25 and we're at public comment. So if the state could help us with public comments now, please, our state partners, that would be fantastic. Hello, Colorado. Welcome to the Advisory Council. What can we help and answer today?
So just as a heads up, Bob, we don't have anything in the Q&A.
Okay.
For folks who are attending, you can raise your hand or request to come off mute, and then we can do that as panelists and co-hosts. I also do not have anything in the chat in terms of questions yet. Good news, our interpreter is here. And so Marina or Sarah will help me make sure that we get your video on as a panelist so that folks can pin that to their Zoom screen if needed.
Thank you so much. I'll give it another minute. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to address either the BHA or Advisory Council?
Okay, we do have Kat. I see that you put something in the chat. It's a link to a document. Would you be willing to come off and kind of share with the council what the document is? And then Frank, I do see your hand up. Okay.
Unmute.
And
There we
Marina,
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Kathleen Derringer. I'm a council member with the Colorado Rare Disease Advisory Council. I have prepared a brief summary of some changes that I see that may need to be addressed within behavioral health and mental health regarding those that have rare diseases. So when you get a moment, I would appreciate if you wouldn't mind taking a look at it and give me your feedback.
Thank you so much. If we wanted to ask for a summary today, could you do that in approximately 2 to 3 minutes as we're reviewing the document?
I think I can do that.
Okay, ma'am, you have 3 minutes to present to us, please. Please go ahead.
Okay. Somebody's banging at my door. I'm sorry. Well, what this is I would like mental health to work with the rare disease community, because far too often there's this stigma, at least I've seen this happen, with the stereotyping of those who may have a rare condition. And I think that education is key between community leaders, the medical community, as well as behavioral health, to have a cohesive relationship. I can speak from my own personal experience. And I just think that this is something that's long overdue. We need support. The zebras need your support. And that's all.
Thank you for taking the extra time today to explain the document that you sent forth. We appreciate everything your group is doing, and thank you for bringing this to our attention. We are all advocates together, so thank you for your advocacy. Do we have anyone else in the queue that has questions or would like to speak to us before this part of the agenda closes? Anyone else from cold Colorado today?
Yes, Bob, we have 2 hands up, and I think Frank Cornelia was first. So Frank, you can go ahead and I will go and unmute you.
Mr. Cornelia, how can we help you today?
Hi, everybody. It's just a question for the group. I'm just following along today, and I know we're still early in the process of, developing the structure of the advisory council. I was just curious, given the large amount of rulemaking that the BHA is involved in, what the process has been to date of getting this advisory council's, consultation or input on, I guess, both the process and the content of some of the rule changes. So just a question for this group on how that might, how you may interface with some of those changes coming down the pike. Thank you. Thanks for everybody's work.
Thank you, Frank. Basically, what the BHA has been doing, which has been very helpful. We've been invited to all of the meetings, of course. We spend time reviewing the strategic plan. We've spent time attending different community meetings as well as the rules committee. Raquel, I do believe you've been attending some of the rules committee when it comes to certain parts of it. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely, as many as that I can attend.
Do you want to provide how we've been participating as a advisory body in that process?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Wow, gosh, how have we not been? I feel like we've gotten a great, I believe my favorite thing is that when we asked for things to kind of slow down so we could better understand things, I felt like we were heard. That's one of my favorite experiences so far of being part of this committee. I've been asked in the community how that works, if we're being listened to, and the answer is yes. If we feel like things are going too fast or we don't understand, the time is taken for us to have it broken down into consumable pieces for those of us who aren't used to the language that those that govern may use, if that makes sense, right? And so it's like, I need some of those things broken down. And so the time is taken. If we ask for it, it's given. I have yet been told no if I don't understand something. So I think they've been supportive. I've sat in the meetings. Part of why we created this form was because we were being listened to, because of that thing I said, I can't be the inbox for the committee. And so again, it was listened to, that we need a central place that we can all send, be able to not have the burden and have that lifted and all carry that together. So that form plays a big role in us being listened to. And it'll continue as we move forward.
Mr. Cornelius, also the state has been a great partner to the many of us here on the advisory council. So the state has mandated some things that need to be completed, like the strategic plan, the licensing requirements. So there's a lot of things as a brand new seated advisory council we obviously have to catch up on. But one of the great things that this advisory council asked of the BHA was to leave everything fluid. Because we don't have the time, the policies, the procedures to adequately have the time to review as much is happening at the speed that it's happening. But the nice part about the partnership is they did agree to leave things fluid, but we do have a timeline. We do need to move forward. And as this group gets its feet wet and more educated about the process, I'm sure there's going to be times that we go back and look at certain rules, look at certain parts of the strategic plan, but we've been guaranteed that we will have a say and an input. Right now, we're obviously building structure, building who we are, building the processes to review this information and to be good stewards of behavioral health as a seated community of experience, lived experience body. So it's been a decent working relationship. Yes, it's moving fast, but yes, we will have the opportunity to make feedback in future months. Do we have one other person I think we have online?
Yes, Seth Watkins has his hand up. Seth, go ahead.
Hi, Seth.
Hi, this is Seth Watkins. I just wanted to talk with Kat that presented her link to her document. Just looking over it, I just wanted to be supportive of it. And also in our bylaws committee, we are talking about how BHAAC members can also be a part or guests of other advisory panels in the state, so that we could work with those other councils and advisory bodies so that we can like work together across the board with mental health and recovery and substance use and recovery and just kind of like anything that's like focused on mental health, like councils and recovery. We want to probably have a member that's going to be a part of that, like trying to be a part of that, those committees or councils to bring back information to this body. So we are discussing it, and we are working on it in our rules. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you so much, Seth. Is there any other comments from the public? Task force members?
I did not see any, Bob.
All right, thank you very much. This part of the agenda is now closed. Thank you everyone for your participation. The next part is we get the opportunity to review the form and this great rich conversation that we just had about dialogue and the presentation that we just had from a community member. So let's take a look at the form that's being created. That's going to be the engagement form that will go on our portal. It'll be on the advisory council portal. Anyone from the community can fill this out, and then it's going to be sent to executive committee. Executive committee will review the information. It'll be something that we can either handle ourselves internally or we'll pass that on. But do we have the ability to show what that looks like?
Yes, I am going to try and Sarah steal the screen from you.
All right,
Okay.
so task force members, this is what's been created. This is coming before the task force for you to review and spend some time with. And then we're going to take a vote on this today so it can launch. So I'm going to ask us to move along on this because we also have timelines and we want things to keep moving. So I'm going to ask everyone to take a little bit of time to read it. And then if someone from the state could read this out loud so it can be translated, that would be fantastic. So Angelina, would you mind reading it out loud so it can be translated? Thank you so much. Everyone go to mute and spend time on the document. Thank you.
Okay, so it is a Google form, and it has at the top the Colorado Behavioral Health Administration logo. The header says BHAAC or BHAAC Community Dialogue Form. So we start with the Behavioral Health Administration's Advisory Council, BHAAC, invites you to start a dialogue with us through the use of this public forum. We will receive feedback, questions, and potential topic ideas from this form submission. We are a diverse group of people who have lived experience with the government systems that perpetuate the root causes of inequities in access to care and whole person health. Our council is built around the Behavioral Health Administration's, or BHA's, core values of truth, equity, collaboration, community-informed practice, and generational impact. We are committed to receiving and responding to the needs of the people of Colorado. Your safety in this and any interaction with us as your council members is our top priority. This form is set up to gather your feedback either anonymously or not. Please do what makes you feel the most comfortable. And then the next section has a header that says BHAAC details, or BHAAC. So the BHAAC was formed to co-create and inform the BHA's vision and strategic plan. Members of this council applied and were selected to ensure that there is public accountability and transparency across the activities of the BHA. The inclusion and creation of the BHAAC in the manner described came from Colorado law, and activities of BHAAC began in 2022. Find out more about the council members and future BHAAC meetings here, and then there's a link to your website. The next section has a header that says what happens to the information after it's submitted. That content reads, identified members of the BHAAC Executive Committee, and then in parentheses, a smaller group of council members, and one BHA representative have been selected to monitor any form submissions. If there are any urgent matters submitted, someone will reach out to you as soon as possible. For non-urgent matters, those identified folks will bring all information received from this form to the broader BHAAC Executive Committee for review. That group will either respond individually, assign specific topics to the BHAAC agenda, or provide details to the BHA as appropriate. And then the last section says accessibility as the header. And the contents say, if you have any issues accessing this form or completing it, please reach out to, and then it's blank and it says insert name and email address here, because we still need to identify somebody to reach out to. Then if you scroll down, so that's all intro. If you scroll down, we tried to keep the form as simple as possible. So it says name, and then in parentheses, it says optional. Pronouns, again, in parentheses, optional. Email address, parentheses, optional. It asks, are you a representative of a specific organization or county? And that's a yes or no question. If someone says yes, then we ask that you provide the name of the organization or the county you are representing. And then the last field just says, please provide any feedback, questions, or topic suggestions here. And it's open for content. And then at the bottom, there's a submit button or a clear form button.
Thank you very much, Angelina. All right, task force members, please spend some time reviewing this. And at this time, we can take questions, suggestions, and edits to the form. If the form is appropriate today and everyone's comfortable, let me know and I can move to a vote. At this moment, we're open for discussion.
Bob, Karen, Renee Anderson has her hand up.
Please go.
Hold the audio now on mute.
This looks really good. I wanted to let you know it is accessible for screen reader both on the phone and on a PC for the blind. So that was very good, the first thing. And then the content is very good as well.
Thank you, Renee.
Sure.
Hold Y and now lowered.
This is Jessie Pocock.
Hi, Jessie.
First of all, thank you also for reading it out loud and offering that accessibility. I appreciate that, institutionalizing that follow-up from previous conversations. This is great. I love that we're doing this. I would just add that regularly government communication can be so academic. And I would encourage to really make the language more accessible and just, just kind of think about some of the words that we're using and maybe just make it more accessible. And I'm happy to help with word copy if anyone would appreciate that. Just let me know.
Thank you for the offer, Jesse. Appreciate it. We have had it go through one round, just in transparency as to language and vocabulary and use of sentence structure. So it doesn't mean that it can't go through more rounds, but I did want to let everyone know that that has taken place. Further discussion on the form. All right, if there isn't further discussion on the form, what I'm going to suggest is that.
There is.
Sorry, I'm going to pause you. Yeah, Maria, it looked like Maria, you had your actual hand up, so I don't want to miss that. And then we do have another hand up as well. So at least 2 more comments, Bob.
All right, let's go.
I just want to say that the background that you use of the yellow is very helpful, but the white is still very overstimulating. And the font size is done pretty, it's very readable. So thank you.
Do you have a suggestion as to what shading we should use other than white?
Blue is good. Black for some people, but it's just better if it's not so white. It's a lot of white real estate.
So if we found a shade of blue in the spectrum that wasn't stimulating, that would be your suggestion?
It would be better.
All right, thank you. Next question, please.
Yeah, I think that might be me. This is Cameron.
Hi, Cameron.
Hi, I really agree with Jesse's comments. I work with many youth and young adults, and so just looking at this initial form, I do think this is great. I am curious if we can expand on what we mean when we ask about representing a specific organization or county. Like organization makes sense to me, but like county wise, how are we using that information? And I'm just thinking like, oh, does that mean I need to be like a state representative or someone for a specific county? And then the last question on providing feedback questions or topic suggestions here. I wonder if we could just add examples of what that might look like. I know we're like thinking about topic suggestions, but if we could say this might inform a future BHAAC agenda, that might help a little bit.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions that I am not seeing on my screen?
I'm at home today, so I have kiddos in the background, but I was just saying Medicaid says a 6th grade level for presentation. And I've been working on that. It's just very difficult to be able to get all of the language down to a 6th grade level. It's a lot of the wording for like even the values, truth, equity, collaboration, community-informed practice, and generational impact. Getting those all down to, with including those as they're written, getting it down to a 6th grade level is pretty difficult. Some of those things, maybe looking at, do we need to have all of those pieces in this particular document to make it more accessible to the members that are looking at it? Might be something to review.
Thank you. And this is Tina, correct?
Yes, this is Tina. I apologize.
Hi, Tina. Hey, I'm getting good at voices. All right. Are there any other comments or feedback as to our dialogue form for the portal? Okay, at this time, this is what I'm going to suggest. So we have the feedback. We're going to take the feedback constructively. We're going to make and adapt to the changes. What I'm going to ask Advisory Council is to adopt this form to get us moving. to get it on the portal so we can start communicating with the community. And then we will bring back the other version with the suggestions that everybody has made. So what I'm going to put on the floor is, can we move this forward with the knowledge that we are accepting the feedback and making changes? So that's my motion.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Oh, so Jesse was in the comments and said so moved. And then this is Tina. I said I second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. By the show of your electronic hands, please put them up for vote. I'm closing discussion and now we're moving to vote. I'll count hands up to quorum. I have quorum hands and it passes. So thank you, everyone. We're well on our way. So let me reiterate what we've just done. We're going to adopt the form as it is right now to get it posted so we can get the dialogue piece going on our portal. We will work with our state representatives and partners to take the suggestions and the feedback from task force members to make it more equitable and accessible to multiple people throughout the state. So thank you, everyone. We will make those changes and get it back to everyone for review. But at this point in time, we have a form that will go up and we can start community dialogue. So congratulations. We continue to move forward. So thank you, everybody. So I know that the next part of the agenda, part of it was suspended because we are in the grant review process. But are there other updates from the BHA as to information on other funding and grants that's currently taking place? Or is this entire part of the agenda suspended?
So Bob, I'll open it up. And then what I'll do, if any of my other BHA folks want to chime in, please feel free to do so. And then as soon as we're done, I will put a link to our funding page in the chat so that folks can look through that. That's going to have the list of most recent opportunities. I think that this conversation, and other folks, please correct me if I'm wrong, was really about how folks with lived experience can participate and be decision makers in funding opportunities offered by the BHA. So that's part of the reason why we can't talk about it today, because there are those open still funding sources where folks are participating in grant reviews and things. But we would like to have the conversation about like, how can folks with lived experience get involved and what is the importance of having that perspective on a grant review team.
And are you saying that's going to be at a later date, or you want to have
Yes.
half that conversation today?
Later date.
Okay. At this point in time, I would like to make a motion that this part of the agenda is suspended, and it will reflect in the minutes and the agenda that I am suspending this to a later date because it's in an ongoing grant review process. If someone can make a motion suspending this and bringing it back, I would appreciate that.
I make a motion that we go ahead and just suspend this for now and bring it back in a later meeting.
Thank you, Carolyn.
This is
We are very interested in being a part of this process, so we're only suspending it, everyone. Do I have further discussion? All right, by show of electronic hands, that we're going to suspend and move this to a future
I had one
meeting.
comment. Sorry,
Oh,
I couldn't find the
yes.
mute button. This
Yes.
is Tina. Is there anything that's going to be affected by dates that, by timeframes that may be missed because of postponing?
There aren't that I'm aware of, Tina. So, but let me check with my internal BHA folks. You know, we have lots of grants over lots of different divisions. If that is a risk, I can send an email out to our BHAAC members and let folks know if there is a deadline that's upcoming in terms of participating in a grant review, and we'll see what we can do to get that information to you before the deadline comes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
But we also have two hands up. I have Robert and I have Noor. Robert, go ahead.
No, my hand was up from the vote still, and then somebody jumped in. Sorry.
I will take that down, no problem. And Noor Shafi, you can go ahead.
My hand was up for that as well, but I was just wondering if we would get a notification for the next round to join one of the grant committees.
I think similarly to Tina's question, right, Noor, I will get with BHA division folks and see if we have any that would sort of be in between this and our next meeting, so that I can let you folks know if there are opportunities upcoming that we're worried about in terms of deadline.
Awesome, thank you.
Any further discussion before we suspend this part of the agenda and move it to future? I'm hearing no more discussion. Discussion closed. Move to vote electronic by hands. I have quorum. I'm at consensus on suspending and moving this. Motion passes. So what can we learn about during this section that would be appropriate? And what does it mean that you're saying you would like our involvement? What does involvement look like? So I think we can at least have that conversation so people know when the state is saying be involved in the review and evaluation process. I've been in that process for over 20 years, so I know what that means. But to all of our new folks coming to this advisory council, what is the state looking for and what does that mean? So that way everybody has equal footing on what we just suspended and moved forward. Can you at least offer an explanation of what this means?
Bob, can you ask me that again? I'm thinking about your question. I'm like, because we just.
All right, so
I'm not really sure what information you want.
I just want to make sure that everyone on the advisory council understands when we're talking about evaluation committees, reviewing of applications. What is that? What is it that you're looking for people to do? So I guess I'm asking for you to explain what a review committee at least is and what they're reviewing and why they're doing it. So that way, I just want to make sure everyone understands this language that we just suspended, because not everyone knows what a review committee is for a grant. So I was just asking if you can explain it in a little bit more detail, because I do believe people need a little bit more information on what we just did. That's all I'm asking. Okay.
So as folks may or may not know, both BHAAC members and attendees, the BHA has a lot of grant opportunities or funding opportunities. Again, I put the link in the chat to our page that lists those things out. And so potentially the BHA would be looking for people to participate in reviewing any of those applications. So for our members, I can probably relate it to similarly to the process that you went through to become a BHAAC member. Folks or organizations or individuals or counties, right, depending on the grant, can apply for funding from the BHA. And the topical areas of those differ vastly and greatly. And so it's hard for me to get super specific in like what a grant might be. But essentially it's an opportunity to access funding money for a specific need. And so we would want people, again, the conversation that we hope to have with you is like, what level of participation do BHAAC members want to have or are interested in having as lived experienced folks in the grant review process, which means you look at all the applications, we give you a scoring sheet and you kind of score each of the applications based on that scoring sheet. Then you discuss with the other reviewers and then kind of come to decisions around awarding that funding based on the applicants that came in. And again, like I said, this differs depending on what the grant funding is for, what the BHA has said are like the restrictions around it. And please know it's not, usually grant reviewers aren't just open to anybody because there can be lots of conflicts of interest. And so even if you do want to participate in a grant review, something we'll have to look at is that conflict of interest. And so that can be part of the conversation whenever we have this again next time as well. Like, what does that mean? What might examples be, etc. So does that help, Bob?
That helps fantastically. As advisory council members, was that sufficient enough for us to suspend it? And does everyone feel they understand the process of what we were just talking about? That was most important for me today. So is there any other conversations needing to be had on that? I just wanted to make sure we all were on the same footing as to that agenda item. Are we good? All right, I see that we're good. Yes, and you're welcome. I do have us ahead of schedule. We have Dr. Madlock today at 2:30 and it's 2 o'clock. So I could make another modification and we could go into the strategic plan and then take a break. So I'm going to ask Angelina if you guys would be prepared to do that now.
So we absolutely can do that, Bob, but I actually think, I know it's hard to give folks a break a little too early, but part of Dr. Medlock's presentation is going to kind of set us up for the talking of the strategic timeline.
Okay.
So we could switch them, but it may not be as helpful.
All right. Well, we have 30 minutes.
And looks like Dr. Medlock is here and ready if we wanted to do that before break.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So, so Dr. Medlock is here. I'm going to go ahead and call for the break so everyone is ready to hear the presentation and then go into the strategic plan. So with everyone's blessing, let's go into a 10-minute break so we can be fresh and ready for Dr. Madlock, and then we'll move into the. Hello, welcome back, everyone. We are now back from break. It is 2:10. We've moved some things around today. We're running a little early, so we're going to move into a presentation from Dr. Madlock and an update from the BHA. After we have that presentation, the next part of the agenda is to learn more about the vision plan and the strategic plan that the BHA has launched at the end of January. Then we're going to move into what's going on around Colorado, prevention, recovery, treatment, and intervention. This is also a part where our advisory task force members can ask questions about the day and our experience that we had, and we can have some dialogue and gain some more information. So that is all what is next on the agenda. At this point in time, please help me welcome Dr. Madlock.
Thank you so much, Chairman Bob, and want to also recognize our co-chair, Raquel Garcia. Thanks to you both for allowing time for the commissioner's briefing today. To the people of Colorado that are on the line, my name is Morgan Metlock, she, her, hers. I'm the commissioner of the Behavioral Health Administration, and every meeting I have the chance to come before this council and before the public and to share a bit about the BHA and how we're integrating lived expertise. Today's briefing will really center around the historic strategic plan that was released by the BHA on January 31. Want to ask our support team to please ensure the public have a link to that today. Let's put that in the main chat. And then I also want to give an update on some of the community forums that we have held around the behavioral health administrative services organizations, a fancy way of saying, how do we ensure that people living in every part of the state get what they need when they need it? I want to also just acknowledge Black History Month. We know that Black history cannot be encompassed within just 28 days of February. Certainly Black history is American history, but we just want to acknowledge that from the Behavioral Health Administration, that this is Black History Month. I also want to say how proud I am that this Lived Experience Council is made up of 40% Black Indigenous people of color. I think that is profound, and that is certainly special to me as a woman of color. So thank you for your service. Thank you for being a part of our journey together. On the next slide, you will see that I'd like to open this briefing by acknowledging that our co-chairs of our Lived Experience Council opened up the strategic plan. This in itself is so cool to me, that we have a state agency releasing a strategic plan, but the first page is dedicated to lived experience, and it's signed by our co-chairs of the Advisory Council. This is so special. It's a story about the people of Colorado. It's not about any state bureaucrat or leader or official who decided to do something different. It's about the people of Colorado who demanded change, and they were heard. And so as our co-chairs wrote an opening letter to community, this vision is really not about any one person. It's about all of our communities coming together and seeing that collectively we have a central purpose. And that's to lift up the value of people and their experiences, and to think about how do we support a system that meets the needs of every person, irrespective of race, gender, identity, ability. How do we ensure that our system is truly people first? You'll notice that in this opening letter, Raquel and Robert, Bob Dorsheimer, issue a call saying that together we can achieve the critical task of setting a new standard for comprehensive, equitable, and effective behavioral health care in Colorado. Our mission together is to co-create a people-first behavioral health system that truly meets the needs of every person in the state. On the next slide, you will see that our strategic plan defines co-creation as the practice of addressing cultural changes, not from a top-down approach from the commissioner to the state, but rather from a bottom-up approach where citizens, members of the advisory council, members of the public are able to become key players in developing a new system together. That's co-creation. You'll notice we call this out in the strategic plan on how we are committed to working with our communities to build this new system. On the next slide, you'll also notice that we are sharing a story and a journey about how we got there. This is decades in the making. You know, this started not just with the Behavioral Health Task Force in 2019, but really 30 years ago, you know, with advocates and communities calling for change. And now decades later, we have the task force that launched in 2019. We have the Behavioral Health Blueprint that was issued. The title of that blueprint, Putting People First. That people want state agencies to stop fighting about money and dollars and territorialism and silos. They want to see a system where it's about people. We then had the needs assessment that was released. And the needs assessment highlighted that Black, Indigenous people of color, that rural and frontier Coloradans, that there were unique groups that deserved special attention, not because they were damaged, but because the system was not built to see them succeed. And so it showed us that we needed a system that acknowledged the unique journeys, cultural needs, language needs, to support every person in our state. Then in April 21, as we move forward 1 year, we released and passed House Bill 21 1097, which established and directed the Assembly to establish a new behavioral health administration by July 2022. We then move forward a few months, and the November report is released. Well, what was in this report? This report said that this is the implementation strategy. And if you ever need some reading at night, This is a good report to start with. It's about 70 pages, the November report, the implementation plan for the BHA. We follow that very closely. And then finally, in May of last year, House Bill 1278 passes and officially established the duties of the Behavioral Health Administration. Let's go to the next slide. And so how does this story come together? As you see on the left-hand side of the screen, we're trying to move from a place that has really been clouded by a system that has not always been focused on people, that has been fragmented, that has not always had the best funding approaches, that has not always had the best data approaches, where the stories of diverse communities have been misrepresented, under-collected, under-reported, where there hasn't been system coordination. That cloudy day is behind us. We're moving into the light, where we believe in truth-telling, equity, collaboration, community-informed practice, and making a real impact, where people are put first, where there's a unified strategy across state government, where we have improved funding, where we're coordinating not just at the state level, but at the federal level, federal government, to ensure that we're bringing dollars into the state to support diverse communities, to ensure that our data is not just exhibiting a deficit-based approach of community, but actually telling the story, how Black, Indigenous, people of color have not had their strengths highlighted. And finally, we're moving toward networked government. So not working in silos, but a new way of doing government, thinking about government, as we want to bring across systems from prevention to treatment to recovery. Next slide. As we think about this historic month, Black History Month, you'll notice that a pillar of the strategic plan is our equity plan. And we define equity as naming root causes of injustices and allocating resources to support the desired outcomes. What does that mean? Well, we can't just talk about equity. We have to pay for equity. My goodness, what a challenge. We understand that racism is a system that structures opportunity and assigns value based on the social interpretation of how people look, that harms communities who don't have privilege within that structure. And so we acknowledge that in order to really dismantle that system, in order to really build a system that puts people first, we've got to put money behind that system. We also acknowledge that we have to have a system that uses data and its interpretation not to harm communities of color, but to truly allow their stories to live and breathe and to be valued. And so the BHA is committed to working with its co-creation structures, including this council, the Denver Rocky Mountain Association of Black Psychologists, the Colorado Black Health Collaborative, our tribal nations, and urban organizations, public comment in our community sessions to seek input on how do we begin to measure and push toward a system that really reflects improved outcomes. That's what we want. We know that our communities are not seeking a handout. Our communities are seeking a helping hand, an understanding system, a system that meets you where you are, but doesn't leave you there. How do we move toward that system? Next slide. And so this is a powerful vision. It's a vision that understands that we can't just talk about treatment, which is what we see on the right-hand part of the slide, but we also have to talk about prevention. And prevention for the BHA starts with understanding social and institutional injustice, understanding that there are forces in this world that harm certain communities more than others. Economic forces, political forces, racism, systems of power and privilege. And those systems directly impact the living conditions of people's lives. It impacts who gets seen for behavioral health in the emergency room versus at home. It impacts who can use telehealth versus not. It impacts who is sheltered versus not. It impacts who has money to buy a meal today versus who does not. And until we start contending with these larger forces, the BHA believes that we will not get to where we need to be. Ultimately, we believe that every person deserves to experience whole person health. That means a place to live, a place to work, a community that values them, and being well in mind, body, and spirit. Next slide. And so as we move toward this vision, We have included in our strategic plan something called a roadmap to reform. And I appreciate the challenge today to break this down into basic language. So here's my attempt to do that. The first big reform is we want to establish networked government to improve accountability. Here's the simple language for that. When state agencies start working together, we believe we can create a new legacy for you, for your loved ones, and for generations to come. Second big idea, we have to build an accountable, affordable, and high-quality behavioral health system in collaboration with other state agencies. What does that mean for the person who may be sitting in this room today? It means that if we can break across silos, if we can think about a strategy that's focused on people, it will ensure that every person in our state gets the services they need, no matter how they access care. Here's the third big idea. We have to promote a new system norm of investing in upstream prevention. All right, here's the plain language to that. Creating a more just world for the people of our state starts with addressing the conditions of their everyday lives. Here's the fourth big idea. We have to create a new approach to expanding provider networks and services. What does that mean for you? It means that if we can create an approach where services are accessible, meaningful, and coordinated across the state, that will support the resilience of individuals, families, and communities. We talk a lot at the BHA about not just creating a safety net, but creating a trampoline so that when folks experience our safety net system, that they can actually bounce back to better aspects of living and thriving. That's our vision. The final big reform is implementing new products and technology where systems can enhance access to care. What does that mean in simple language? That every person in Colorado deserves to experience whole person health and have supports that meet them where they are. That's the big picture. This roadmap to reform concludes the strategic plan. And I hope that those 5 pieces that we can continue to wrestle with as we think about co-creating a people-first behavioral health system. I don't want to end today without also giving you an update on the BHAACs. Again, that's Behavioral Health Administrative Service Organizations. So let's go to the next slide. And so council, you recall that we wrestled for many months since December on some of these principles. And just to ground us, the BHAACs are a way of thinking about how do we ensure services are meeting the needs of people no matter where they live in the state. And so there's been a lot of talk around what should be the boundaries of the BHAAC. How will the BHA determine the region? So we looked at this approach, which is a 2-region model. And we looked at 3 scenarios of the 2-region model. I want to update the council today that on the next slide, we want you to consider this final model that we are presenting to the state. And if our support team could put that video link, that YouTube link that's there in the slides, if we could put that in the chat for the council and for the people of Colorado. If you look at this video, it will summarize how this 3-region model came about and everything you need to know in just 7 minutes about the 3-region model. We are getting input on this, and we think that this may be a way to address some of the concerns people have had about only having a 2-region model. And so we're trying to compromise here, and we want to get thoughts and comment on this model today. Just to summarize for those who may not be able to view the slide, the 3-region model is different than the prior models because it creates an approach to taking the Western Slope, the Denver Metro, and then the eastern part of the state as the 3rd component. So the first BHAAC is made up of Ray 1 and 6. The second BHAAC is made up of Ray 2, 4, and 7. And the third BHAAC is made up of Ray 3 and 5. We think that if we can go to a 3-region model and have that model potentially coordinate closely with the Medicaid model, that may be a good reason to pivot to this approach. So As I conclude my briefing today, I'll be happy to hear feedback on the 3-region model, and be sure to check out that 7-minute video. All right, let's go to my last slide. I am wrapping up. So in summary, today we have acknowledged Black history. We have acknowledged the role of Black Indigenous leadership, even on this council. We have reviewed our strategic plan and our 5 big changes to the system that we believe will impact people-centered care. We have reviewed an update on the BASOs. And then finally, I want to share with you some dates we are so much looking forward to. First of all, I am broadcasting today from our new office, and we have moved to 710 South Ash Street, which is the Department of Public Health campus here in Cherry Creek. And so very soon we will be inviting our Lived Experience Council and other community members to come into our open house to see what we're up to. We are committed to making this not just an office where we come to work, but where community can come to dialogue. And so we will have free office space for meetings and other things where community members want to come in and not just meet with the BHA, but hold meetings with their stakeholders. We want to be a part of that work. The second thing I want to highlight is that I believe that the council is about to take a big step to the next level. We want to not just have lived experts talking in this forum. We want to empower our lived experience co-chairs to speak truth to power. And so on June 7th, this is going to be a really special meeting where I am going to be inviting Raquel and Bob as our chairs to come into our cabinet meeting. This is so cool. On June 7th, Raquel and Bob as co-chairs will be joining the Polis cabinet to talk about their vision for behavioral health. This is going to be a powerful meeting. The theme of that meeting is celebrating 1 year of networked government. And then finally, I want to remind our council that as you're building your governance and your executive committee, we want to remind you that an annual report is due this year from you. Your first annual report to the General Assembly is due this year by September 1. And so just want to remind this council that this is a big deal. The Assembly is wanting to hear directly from you in this report. So please, as you are meeting in your subcommittees, think about how you can work together to meet this requirement in the law. And then the BHA will be including your report in our General Assembly report. So that's 6 months looking ahead. Thank you again for the time today.
Dr. Madlock, I am so thankful for your presentation today. I'm looking around my screen and I see a lot of smiles and very gracious. Thank you. Thank you so much. We will have that report done on time. No worries about that. Thank you very much for the invitation. In June, we will represent the advisory body very well. As someone who adopted out of Colorado's child welfare, and my children live with multiple disabilities, including mental health disabilities, and hearing about the BASOs and how we're restructuring behavioral health in Colorado, I want to take the initiative as lead chair to say, I am very thankful for your staff and yourself about the listening and the compassion and the hearing. So what you've done for me and my family today makes me proud, because I have personally been concerned about my children, which are now adults, but they're always going to be my children. My children still struggle. We're still involved with mental health. I have one home with me today in mental health crisis. The BASO 3 presentation to me makes sense. I always thought Colorado needed 3. I certainly understood you wanting to be a good steward of money to make sure that we're getting those dollars to the people that we serve. But I also know that Colorado is so diverse, and I appreciate you talking about the diversity. I do believe BASO 3, me personally, I'm speaking for myself, not as chair, but as dad, Bob dad, I do believe BASO 3 represents equity and all of the diversity of Colorado. The fact that the slide is before us today is evidence that the BHA is listening. And that I can tell to everyone in Colorado, because I've been involved in a lot of high-level meetings, and you don't normally get this type of response. So this is a very big deal, folks. I thank the BHA from Dad Bob, and I appreciate you listening, and we all appreciate your fellowship. So, all right, open for dialogue. What's going on, task force members? Let's talk. Come on, you're not a quiet group of people.
I'll say I like the 3. This is Rob. I'll say I like the 3 better than 2. For sure, we don't want the smaller communities to be swallowed up and not have the same opportunities for services, or just the being able to communicate with the BOSSO. So I think 3 makes it it spreads it a little better, and I think that. I like it a lot, and I like that it looked like, I can't remember, El Paso was part of the same region as, like, I know Pueblo and some of, which makes a lot of sense to me the way it's kind of drawn out. So I like that one. I like 3 the best. Can we see it again?
Absolutely. Support team, let's go back to that slide. Thank you.
Yeah, to me, it makes sense that Pueblo, El Paso, Huerfano are all in the same area. I like that. It's the way it was split up with us before in the MSO. El Paso was different than Pueblo, and so that always made it difficult for us that served several of those communities.
Rob, it also mimics better alignment with Medicaid for our consumers, which means all of us that are on Medicaid, it looks like it would be easier to access services and less confusing with this scenario. Other members, please, would love to hear from you. Raquel?
Nope, Seth's up.
Seth?
Hi, this is Seth Watkins. I also like the 3 BOSSO diagram as well. I think it works pretty well with regards to the RAIs, the regional accountability entities. And I think that what I would want to see in some form is maybe like a behavioral health administration advisory council for each BOSSO, for like to kind of like look at their own regions and their own BOSSOs and offer like advice to us and advice to, leaders in the regional county levels. And then also, encourage that each RAI or region would also have their own Medicaid experience advisory councils or their own member advisory councils, so that they have a voice and an input in where things are going, and how like they can join other parts of other councils, such as like this council when we have openings, and like how people can get involved in other councils and stuff like that. I think there needs to be member accountability at each of the RAIs with the council, and also at each of the BOSSOs that kind of reports to us for the BOSSOs, and to the RAIs they can report to HICPA for the state or whatever, to the Medicaid Council seat at the state Medicaid Council. So that's where I would like to see something happen.
Thank you, Seth.
Yeah, I do work with Robert along this region. So like, it makes sense that we now don't have this weird, awkward pocket of El Paso County, because it was just so awkward when you're doing work on this division of the line here. So I'm in favor of the 3 BOSSO. And I want to say what Bob said, which is that we feel listened to, because I think that was a concern I heard in the community, that people didn't feel like they were listened to. And this tells me that we weren't just going to stick with, we had only the choice out of the 3, and we weren't going to be able to budge anything one way or the other. And so this just feels a little bit more inclusive, like we were listened to. And I like I said, that was the biggest concern in the community from someone whose inbox was getting some of these inquiries. I feel like I confidently too can say back they were listening.
Absolutely. I apologize for the order, but I know Miss Tina is going to be happy to step up next because she was with me all along saying number 3. So Tina, go for it.
I'm thrilled that that's an option. The areas, I can only speak for Ray 4. I do know that we do have member experience advisory councils that are going in Ray 4. I'm actually on one. So I think that joining up with the member experience advisory councils that are already available, sorry for the kids in the background, that using those that are established and linking up with those might be a way to help get members involved and also give relevance to the established committees that are already going. Sorry.
Yep. Thank you, Tina. Raquel, who did you say was next?
Carolyn's up next.
Carolyn, please. You got to come off mute.
I just want to say that I wasn't sure how it was going to work, being so divided among 2. And I really like this model of the 3 BHAACs because I feel some of it's already established. So it's going to be easier for the melting, especially through the regions 2, 4, and 7, and 1 and 6, and 3 and 5 is already established. So I really appreciate this vision, this approach.
Thank you. It is kind of how we're working. You're right, Carolyn. This is kind of how we are set up. So it's kind of a natural thing. Raquel, are you keeping track for me? Who's next?
I can do it, Bob, too. This is Marina. I have Robert and then I have Jamie.
All right, Robert. I think Robert disappeared. Who would be next?
Jamie Ulrich. Jamie, go ahead.
Actually, I think Robert just had himself on mute. I can.
Yeah,
see.
sorry about that. Yeah. I could wait or go now. Sorry, I'm double dipping, but I know that, this is probably premature to ask this, but definitely how much say-so are we gonna have when the BHAAC applications start to come in? Because, I'm sure there's gonna be a ranking for which BHAAC is ranked as those applications come in, which one will go to which community. So just something to think ahead is are we gonna have a say-so in which BHAAC is covering which area?
Rob, are you talking about the earlier conversation? Will people with lived experience be on the review committees?
Yeah. You're right, Bob.
So, Dr. Madlock, we had a conversation about that earlier. When you go to start selecting your BHAACs, do people with lived experience have the opportunity to review those grants? Would that be an appropriate question for you today?
Thank you so much, Chairman Bob. Our Deputy Commissioner of Operations is on the line, and so I'm going to invite her to share a vision for that process, as much as she can share, given procurement rules.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Summer Gather-Cole, as Dr. Madlock said, a Deputy Commissioner of Operations for the BHA. I go by she, her, hers. We have not yet established the evaluation committee for the BHAACs, but we'll certainly ensure to include people with lived expertise, and we'll reach out to this advisory council for volunteers and that.
Thank you. We did have a pretty lively conversation on that today, and people are interested. So you'll definitely get people to serve and help review those applications. Marina, who was next?
Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm wondering your thoughts on how to work through the limitations within statute regarding the regional subcommittees. I believe statute states that we would have one regional subcommittee per BHAAC region. And even with the 3 BASO model that you've presented today, that provides a really vast area for one regional committee to be able to oversee.
Thank you, Chairman Bob. May I respond to that?
Yes, Morgan, Miss Morgan.
Thank you. Thank you again, Director Ulrich. We are actually introducing this legislative session, a change to expand community representation on that issue. So instead of saying just one committee per region, it will simply say that we will have a community-informed regional structure that does not have to be limited to just one committee per region. We agree that communities can select an approach in coordination with the BHA, and of course, appointed by the BHA Commissioner for members to serve beyond just having one committee per region. So we agree with you on that, and we're putting forward a legislative change for that this session.
That's great.
May I ask a follow-up question, or should I
No,
get back
Jamie.
in line? Okay.
No, Jamie, go ahead.
Thank you for that. I think that's great. I do also wonder about the member advisory councils for each RAY and how those will intersect with the original regional councils that will inform the BASOs. Will those be combined? Will there be an opportunity to share information across those? I'm just wondering how those will intersect with one another.
Thank you, Chairman Bob. May I respond?
Dr. Madlock.
Thank you. So Director Ulrich, this is what I am actually hoping to kick off our June 7th conversation when our co-chairs join the POLIS cabinet to discuss behavioral health issues. I'm hoping that that meeting will really kick off a conversation around how do we want lived experience councils to work across state agencies? What do we want that to look like? And I think this is really the next level of where this council can go in terms of not just inputting to the BHA process, but thinking about how does this council want to work with the lived experts at healthcare policy and finance and Medicaid? How does this council want to work with, there's a lived experience housing council, you know, and so that's what we're hoping to accomplish and at least launch that process on June 7th.
That's excellent.
Bob, we had Tasha Konkar next, but
Hey,
they put her
Tosh.
hand down, not sure.
My name is Tasha Konkar, pronouns they, them. I really like the 3 BASA approach, and I have to give Seth a shout out because everything that he said was pretty much thinking outside the box and thorough and analytical in exactly every point that I was thinking as well. So thank you, Seth, for articulating that and speaking and taking the words right out of my mouth. So I agree with Seth on that. Thank you.
Any further dialogue?
I have one more handout by Karen Renee Anderson.
Hold the audio now.
I just have a question regarding, since I can't see the map, can you explain the region that includes all of the eastern part of Colorado? Does that go like from Nebraska all the way to New Mexico to Kansas to where from there?
Since I've been having it read out, let's stay consistently with having it described. So let's let our state representative continue to do our oral today.
Sure, I'm happy to do that, and very good to have that question. So the eastern part of the state is Ray 2, 4, and 7. At the northern part of the state, it includes Weld all the way over to Sedgwick. And then as you move down the eastern corridor, Yuma, Carson, Cheyenne, all the way down. The writing is very small here, so I apologize. And then as you move left, it also wraps around to include El Paso, Park, Pueblo, and all the way down to the Rio Grande. Is that helpful?
Hold the audio now.
Yes, very much so. Thank you so much.
Renee, just for helping you, scenario 3, when we were just discussing it, our slide 3 back in the previous when it had 2 BOSSOs in the large Denver area. What it's done is made the Denver area smaller in red, and what's more in blue would be those that Ray region that Dr. Madlock just described. Does that help you a little further?
Yes, it does. Thanks so
All
much.
right.
I appreciate that.
Yep. Any other questions? Well, this was the fact that so many of us feel validated and heard is a great success today for the BHA. This is what we open up our meetings for. This is what we talk about. So I'm all about giving praise where praise is due, and to have a government be responsive to its advisory council, and to come back with this information today. As chair, I want to say thank you on the behalf of all of us. I would like to do what I'm going to consider an informal thumbs up today as to the latest information, so the state can have some equity behind their presentations as to those of us with lived experience. So I'm going to place a motion on the floor that it's a friendly motion, by the way. It's going to be a non-binding vote because this is not a voting item. But what I'm suggesting is that it is a friendly endorsement from those of us with a lived experience that we appreciate BOSSO 3. Anyone would like to second that?
I'll second that.
Is there discussion?
No, I was just gonna second that. I agree with Raquel.
So I think it's just further discussion. It's just a friendly way to say to our state partners, we're about to take a non-binding friendly vote as
Bob, there's a question on the floor just asking if this is outside of the council or council members only.
council members only.
There you go, Tanya.
Friendly endorsement. So that way, when the state is presenting this, that they can actually say it's gone before the lived experience, which is why we're here. And I think this is why we can give the state some power behind further discussions they need to have, that we've been having this discussion with the state for some time. So this is great. Very validating. We're very appreciative. At this time, I would like members to go to an electronic vote by show of hands.
Hey, Bob, just a second on discussion.
Okay.
So I see the 3 BOSSOs, and I understand that the peer workforce is, going to have a grant to expand scholarships in all of the different BOSSOs and the communities that need them the most. I just wanted to know, is there going to be equity in dividing up those 300 scholarships in each BOSSO where there might be more need for lived experience, peer specialists and peer workers, peer professionals that that could be supported more so than like they've been? Because like in rural Colorado, there's not a lot of like jobs for peers, and there's not a lot of peer workforce. And I just want to make sure that as part of when we're going over the BOSSOs, we're also looking at that $5 million that's being dispersed and making sure it's equitable around the state where workers are needed.
Chairman Bob, may I respond to that?
Please.
Thank you. I want to also pivot and invite Summer Gathercole, Deputy Commissioner of Operations, who supervises our workforce team, to comment on that.
I think it's a great question. So thanks very much for the question. And I would say that, one of the things that we've been trying to look at, we've looked regions is to make sure that there's an equitable funding approach for the entire state. And that would definitely include peer support services as well. So that is something that we'll be taking into consideration and thinking about how do we equitably approach that through the BHAACs. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion on the floor?
Bob, I have a discussion item. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't feel comfortable even doing a friendly kind of thumbs up vote at this time until I've had the opportunity to watch the YouTube video and really get a little more information on the three region approach. So while I appreciate this, I think it's moving in the right direction. I'd like to have the opportunity to review that YouTube video. I understand this is not binding, but I will not be voting at this time.
Thank you. Appreciate. Any further discussion?
Bob, Raina has her hand up. Raina Sheener.
Raina?
I'm sorry, that was just, I was gonna vote for the last question.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm going to call the question. Discussion is closed. Let's just move to our friendly amendment that we're moving in the right direction. We were validated and heard, and this was a pretty exciting presentation. And Colorado is moving in the right direction. So we're basically sending a friendly thank you for being honored, heard, and validated, as I said earlier, by electronic vote, either abstain by not voting, but electronic show of hands to show our state partners our appreciation with bringing back something different. So go ahead and take your vote. I'll check on quorum. If you're uncomfortable, please don't vote. You're absolutely respected. This is it's a non-binding vote and it passes. Our friendly suggestion to the state. Congratulations on all of your hard work, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Madlock, for today's information, very much so. I think everyone here is very appreciative. And we look forward to more information as you guys gather it. But once again, on the behalf of the task force advisory council, this was a nice big surprise today. That being said, as we're moving forward and we didn't get a chance to really dive into our state strategic plan, the state did say they would leave it fluid. So that way, it's a living document. We are at the point of understanding and having a conversation about the 3-year vision. And that is with BHA staff. So the floor is yours to talk about the 3-year vision and strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So just as a fair warning, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to be looking at a Google Sheet. I will do my best to not scroll a whole bunch. And I just tried to change my settings so it's not as bright white for folks. Hopefully that helps a little bit too. Please, of course, put it in the chat if I need to make the text bigger. I'm going to do it that right now anyway. And I will try my very hardest to be good about reading out each and everything so that folks can kind of follow along with us. So what we're looking at here is essentially a spreadsheet of the strategic plan timeline. So Yumiko and I took the content from the strategic plan that was a report format and turned it into an Excel sheet with all of the timelines called out. As you're looking at the top or the columns of the spreadsheet, what you have in the first column is the pillar. So as we know from looking at the strategic plan or just hearing about it, right, all of our strategies are grounded in specific pillars. Then you have the priority. So within each of our pillars, so for example, within workforce and support, there will be a priority. So this first line, the priority says, support and fund the use of a diverse workforce, including peer support professionals. And then there's an associated strategy. So you might have multiple strategies underneath a specific priority, or you might have multiple priorities and strategies underneath a specific pillar, right? So what's important here, and the reason why we broke it down like this, is because we wanted to look at timeline. And so in the co-creation approach, it's important that the BHA is as transparent, or is transparent with our BHAAC members, so that we can say, here are all of the things that have been laid out in our strategic plan, and then have a conversation with you based on timeline. What do we bring to you, and when do we need to do it, right? And I think actually the bosses is a perfect example. That's something that we were the BHA was legislatively required to have like a plan for by a certain date. And so luckily we got some information to you folks in time to get some feedback. But as we are required by legislative timelines to do our work, we need to figure out with you folks how we lay that out in a calendar, essentially. We want to make sure that we are co-creating with you as we said we're going to. And so this was the approach that Yumiko and I thought that we could take in kind of starting that conversation. And then I'm actually going to ask Raquel to help me out here, because I know when we talked about this in executive committee, you had a moment where you were like, oh wait, I get now what we're talking about, like kind of laying out the vision and the timeline for BHAAC by doing this exercise. So I'm wondering if you can help me kind of explain what we're trying to do here.
Trying to do with the
laying out the timeline, and why are we bringing the timeline to BHAAC, and why are we talking about it today?
Well, because we first of all, deadlines are good for us to know what we're up against, right? First of all, and know what, because there are some governances that come in from sources outside of us that we've got to do. I guess I don't know what the aha is. Help me figure it out, Angelina. I'm missing.
Yeah, sorry, that was a couple of weeks ago.
I know. I'm like, I go to a lot of these meetings. You want to help a sister out.
I know. Okay. We were talking about setting the vision and level of involvement for BHAAC. And so as we kind of work through this terribly boring Excel spreadsheet, we want to talk about what level of involvement does BHAAC have in each of these areas, right? Knowing that there's so much work that has to be done. And knowing the cadence of the BHAAC meetings, how do we really go through the strategic plan in a timeline format to help us identify what are the priorities for BHAAC members? What are the pieces of work that you absolutely want to be involved in, right?
Well, yeah, it was figuring out what pieces. Oh, I remember now what we wanted to do. What part of this do we feel like we want to have input in? Where do we want to make sure that when you're looking through this, you guys, it's where do you want to have input? Where do we want to say? Where do we want to have influence? Right. And we can all have different ideas of that. I got you, Angelina. All of us we're going to go through this document and have different ideas. So my thought would be to go through it, put down your ideas somewhere, and let's come together around where we want to apply ourselves. Where is the best use of our energy in the time that we're allotted, right? Because at first it's, we're going to have 6 meetings. Well, we are all past 6 meetings at this point, right? So, also with extending ourselves and not overextending ourselves, being able to show up because we want to be there for our community, number one value for us as a group, right? We want to do that. And we also get to care for ourselves, right? Where it's not impossible work. It doesn't feel like it's overloading and we can't do, most of us have other things that we do outside of this council. So we need to figure out where our priorities are against what the priorities also of the BHAAC are. Of the behavior, of the Behavioral Health Advisory or the administration comparatively to what we think. Make sense? Okay, good, Nora. Thanks for the thumbs up. That makes me feel better.
Thank you, Raquel. I appreciate that. So I know I'm gonna pause for a second, I think, if that's all right, and see if folks have any questions before I get into like actually reading the document. Seth, I know your hand up has been up for a while. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Seth Watkins. I basically understand what you guys have been doing with the spreadsheet. And I think just to like describe it a little for some people, it's like, you know, there is the pillar, there is the priority of like what the state requires or wants, and, you know, what strategy to get to that priority. And then what we're talking about, the main thing is like the timeline of those things that need to get done by a certain date. And then the BHAAC priority is left blank, so we as a council can decide what priorities we think of are like the ones where we should get more involved with. And then the when it would be introduced to us. And then Behavioral Health Advisory Council has a level of involvement, and some of the involvements are low, medium, or high involvement. I don't know who chose what was low, medium, or high. And then there's some notes on some of the involvements that might be high or medium or low.
Yes, I'll get to that part, Seth. Thank you so much. When I go through, I'll kind of explain the columns.
Can I make a suggestion? So as chairing this advisory body, I think it's been very important for us all to have the same language that we started off in August talking about in September, the same knowledge. We went through the trauma-informed care training. So a lot of times when we build, this is a consumer lived experience advisory body. So we're talking about a strategic plan. My question to my colleagues today and friends and to the state is, I think it might be nice to start with the foundation is, what is a strategic plan? Why are we doing it? What are they to accomplish? So I think before we ask people for the higher level stuff to participate in this document, it might be nice to start at Strategic Planning 101 and have a presentation on why these documents are created and how are they used. So that way our advisory members know how to interface and participate in this. So my whole thing is making sure all 20 of us can participate. So I'll leave this up for discussion, but I'd like us to take a step back, in my opinion, and learn about what a strategic plan is and why we're doing it. So that's just a suggestion to the floor. If you're all comfortable, let's move forward. If you're not, then we should respectfully ask for Strategic Plan 101. So open for discussion.
Tasha has their hand up. Tasha, go ahead.
Tasha Conquer, pronouns they, them. I absolutely, I feel that building the stronger foundation and getting the fundamentals to the foundation will make it a lot stronger for us to build the house from here on up, placing the pillars in place. We need that transparency on how this is all broken down. And I agree with Bob. I think there should be 101 like training and stuff like that to break it all down for each section, so it is completely transparent and there's no gray matters in the area when we're building our foundation, because we got to make it solid or it's just going to crumble again. Thank you.
Okay, so I do have some other folks on from the BHA internally who can speak to kind of Strategic Plan 101, why we created a strategic plan, what the purpose of it is for the BHA. So we can cover that. I think I also want to check in. I wasn't planning on going in depth around pillars, priorities today, because I thought Yumiko did that with the review of the strategic plan during our one of our previous meetings, but same as Raquel, I'm in so many meetings, I may be incorrect. So I wasn't planning on going in depth to kind of those sorts of things today. If we want to if we decide that we want to table this conversation and review of the spreadsheet so that we can have the larger in-depth review of like, what does a pillar mean? What does a priority mean? That's something that we can talk about doing. And I see hands up. Would you folks like us to respond to the question of strategic planning 101 first? Or Tasha, do you and Seth and Tina want to respond? Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say, I think it'll be more transparent to the public, like not just us advisory council members, because I study in depth on this stuff every day. And I understand it. I just think as for the public and everything else, with it being, we need to break it back down to basics to gain the trust back and make the solid foundation and be transparent as a whole for all of Coloradoans, not just for advisory council members or other board members or other councils that are all getting involved, but as transparent as we can be for the public, because sometimes the public gets it, but they don't they understand it, but they don't comprehend it. And I'm just being the voice of the people. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Seth Watkins. I just basically, I remember that I got the emails about the strategic plan. I was not able to read all the way through it because it was like 54 pages. And this form of this Excel spreadsheet with the pillar and the priority, listed and like broken down into like words I can understand, makes it helpful for me to be able to understand, where we might as a council want to go with our priorities, or how to be more transparent, and like, what level, I guess, the BHA thinks we need to be involved with these different pillars and these different priorities based on the low, medium, or high involvement. And I think this is a simple way for me to understand and to like see visually what y'all are talking about as far as like the strategic plan. I know what a strategic plan is, but like I wanted a visual way to look at something and be like, okay, I can read this. I know what they're trying to do. I know what the priorities and the pillars are. Like I feel that if this spreadsheet was, after we maybe decide like what our priorities are, would also be shared on the BHAAC webpage for other like people in Colorado to like look at what we've kind of been involved in and what we've kind of decided what might be priorities and the level of involvement that we're going to get involved. I mean, because like this is a good way for me to like look at the strategic plan. So
thank you, Seth. I'm going to respond quickly, and then Tina, I know your hand is still up. So that was the intent of the creation of this document, was specifically to talk with BHAAC or BHAAC members around like, what did the BHA put out in the strategic plan? How do we organize it in a way that helps all of us understand together? I know BHAAC members, at least I have been emailing you and talking about like, we're going to get this flow down, right? Like somehow we're going to figure out how this flow works between the BHA and between BHAAC. And like, we'll come to a place where everything's working nice and smoothly, right? So this was an attempt to kind of get us to that spot. It absolutely is it was initially created for BHAAC members to weigh in on what you folks think the priorities are in the strategic plan. That being said, I think it's a fabulous idea that once it's done and you all have finalized it, that it is something we can share out publicly so that the public can access it and see it. I'm going to do just a quick reminder. We released the strategic plan at the end of January 31st. BHA folks have done a town hall. We did a couple of other public meetings, but I think Marina's going to help me put some links in the chat to those where we review the pillars and the priorities and kind of dig more into like the technicalities of how the strategic plan is designed. And so we're going to put those links in the chat so that everyone has access to them again, the recordings and the PowerPoints if folks want to go back and look at those too, just as a refresher. And then Tina, I will be quiet now. So
just right quick. I just want to say, as someone who wasn't able to participate in those webinars and those, forums and stuff like that, and someone who didn't fully read the strategic plan, even though it's already came out, I'm glad it came out. This is like, for me, the best way I've seen to understand it all. And, Angelina, great job. Yumiko, great job on this. I really like this format a lot better because I can see it and it makes sense to me.
Any other further dialogue?
Tina's
Yeah.
hand is up.
Tina, I think you unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if I was up. So I actually had to explain this to somebody the other day. And the way I explained strategic planning was getting ready to plan for a banquet. So you have all the dishes that you're trying to serve, and it's got to be for one big event. And you have all of the items that you need to bring and all of the things that you're preparing for. So what you guys have done is you have brought each individual dish, listed out for how much time it's going to take, what items are needed for each thing, and broken it down so that we have the overall banquet planned, and it's broken down into each individual item, making up to the overall plan for our banquet. And so if we look at it as this is the individual dishes and who likes to have the stuffing or the candied yams, we just need to figure out which things that we would enjoy to work on and how much time we want to invest on cooking. So do we want to have homemade stuffing or do we want to make it from stovetop?
I love that, Tina. Thank you. And then Robert, I see your hand up.
Yeah, hi, Tina. That was a great way to explain it, by the way. I just feel that our time is extremely limited together. And, it is essential that everybody understands what a strategic plan is. And it is essential that everybody really can comprehend what we're doing. But I don't want, sometimes it seems like we're so caught up in making sure we're really going through and say we take the time to explain this and go in depth. Do we lose time where we get to give feedback because our time's limited? And I know sometimes when we slow up, other things are rushed or not rushed, but they seem to pick up pace. So for me, I am down with anything we could do before the meetings to explain some of this stuff so we don't have to do it now, because especially in the public, people are, I have coworkers that are on here. I have people that I know in the communities, and they're like, when are we going to have some forward filling to it? We get to know there's forward filling to it because we've been involved in it since the beginning. But I just want to make sure that we're not going to lose time to give feedback because we're giving up time to explain. So that's the only feedback I have.
Thank you, Robert. I think, Bob, I don't know if you want to help me out here. Are we doing a strategic plan 101 quickly? I also don't know how much time we have left for this portion of our agenda. So
Strategic plan 101 would need to be on a different agenda. We do not have the time today, but we could take a poll if people are interested in that, to either put that on a future agenda or to put this to rest. So by simple show of hands as to placing this on our next agenda, to have a presentation on what is a strategic plan and how do you get involved with it and work with it. The point of doing a 101 is to make sure everyone is on the same footing. So if you're interested in adding this to the next agenda, place your electronic hand up on the screen so I can take a count. And then we'll move it and have a presentation by the state at our next meeting. So let me go ahead and count. Okay, it'll be placed on the next agenda. All right, thank you, everyone. We can move forth now with the state's presentation to close out this section of the agenda.
Yeah. So knowing that the strategic plan 101 is kind of the foundation of our house, to use the metaphor we were using earlier, what we'll probably do today is not necessarily start digging into each individual strategy that's listed in here. But what we can do is I'll do like an overview of this document. And then I'm not sure if the BHA is allowed to do this, but I will assign you members homework to go through and look at it between now and our next session, so that you can kind of get an idea of, as individuals, what might your top 5 priorities be. And then we can do an activity next time to kind of like see where all of that pans out. And if you don't feel like 5 is enough, I'm open to suggestions. That was just a random number I selected. Okay, so let me go through now and kind of, again, describe the spreadsheet itself and get into Seth some questions that you had about it as well. So our columns across the top are headers.
Time out for a second. Can everyone lower their hands so I make sure I lower your hands now so I know that their actual questions are not? Sorry for the interruption. Thank you.
No, you're good. And let me check in. Raina, do you have a question before I jump in?
No, I'm trying to figure out how to.
Okay. Okay, I was just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, though.
I can do it, Raina. Don't worry. I'll do it. Okay.
Okay. So across the top in our headers, we have column A, which is pillar. And again, right, we have our pillars are well, mine's old, sorry. I'm looking at the one taped up next to my computer. So affordability, workforce and support, accountability, local and consumer guidance, whole person care, and access. And so you will find those pillar titles in this column. In column B, we have priority. And one of the BHA members will jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe priorities were set by the Behavioral Health Task Force. So we've grouped those Behavioral Health Task Force priorities underneath the broader, higher level pillars. The third column, column C, is strategy. So the strategy is what we believe needs to occur in order to reach that or achieve the priority. The fourth column, which is column D as in dog, is timeline. So this is where the whole document is actually sorted by timeline. So you'll see the top one right now is peer support strategy. The timeline for that's January 2023. So clearly, right, like we're kind of past this point of this strategy, but we'll talk about that in a minute, okay? So the next column is column F, which is BHAAC or BHAAC priority. This is where after we do our exercise, we can go through and identify which are the items that are priority for BHAAC. So then column G, the next column, is intro to BHAAC or BHAAC date. This is going to be my special column. Once you all decide about priorities, then I will work backwards and figure out at what point do I need to make sure, or do I need to bring to the executive committee this topic to get it on an agenda so that you have enough time to hear what you need to hear from us at the BHA and enough time to provide whatever feedback you need to provide so that we can close that circle of communication, right? Come back to you, let you know that we did follow up and we heard your feedback, essentially what Dr. Medlock had been doing with the BOSTOs. I want to be able to plan that out in a calendar so that I and the BHA are not rushing you to make decisions, but that we allow for the time necessary to truly like have the good conversation around co-creation. And then the next column, column H, is BHAAC or BHAAC potential level of involvement. So this is not something that you folks set. This is something that we set at the BHA, and this is transparency. We wanted to be as transparent as possible around where we really felt that BHAAC could participate in decision-making around this thing. So you can, I'm gonna quit saying that, I apologize. In the first row, where it says peer support strategy, January 2023, we indicated that your potential level of involvement in that specific strategy is low because we've already released some of that work, right? So if I scroll over, I can see that the strategy itself for peer support was already released, but BHAAC or BHAAC could influence the implementation of that plan. So these last two columns, H, where it says BHAAC potential level of involvement, and then I, where it says notes, that's where we've tried to include our pieces of being as transparent as we possibly can around what we thought the level of involvement was, or the potential level of involvement would be for BHAAC. And of course, right, there's anything is up for conversation. We just, and one of the things that Yumiko and I talked about when we built this, and we talked about with the executive committee when we brought it forward as an agenda option, was that we don't want any of you to feel like stifled by these level of involvement recommendations. But we want to be honest, if there's rule that is already going to state board, then we know that potentially the level of involvement for BHAAC members is low because rules already going to state board. And so instead of saying, yes, please, let's like put that on the agenda for 2 months in a row and talk about it a lot, that may not be the best use of your time. Because as Robert said, right, you have a limited amount of time to provide or really use your influence and decision-making power in a specific way. And so we're trying to be cognizant of that, while also respecting the fact that you are our advisory council. And so please know that level of involvement is our effort to be transparent and not put a box around you and your involvement in our work. So that's the quick, that was very long, but surprisingly, that's the quick description. Tasha, I see your hand up.
Tasha Conquer, pronouns they, them. The only question I have is, how far ahead are we already sitting at timelines? Like, I know there's been a lot of stuff that we've accomplished, and I'm just wondering, like, on the timeline basis that had been put out for the strategic plan, just where we're sitting all together on the timelines. Like, are we ahead? Are we behind? Are we on track? Like, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, Tasha, that's a great question. And what I would encourage folks to think about is not as ahead or behind. I think the BHA has so many strategies and so much work to do there are many more opportunities and many existing opportunities for BHAAC members to participate in co-creation with us. And so I will say, of course, there are a couple things, as you can see at the beginning of this document, where it's like January 2023, February 2023. We are, right, the level of involvement Yumiko and I have indicated as potentially low. But if you scroll down and you kind of see, like, as we get on, so this is just what, a quarter of the way through the document, then it's all blank, because in summer of 2024, when we have to do this thing over here, we have plenty of time to figure out when and how we need to bring that to you folks to hear about, right? And to provide us feedback on. And so I know at being at the very top, it looks bad, but I promise when you scroll down, there's lots more opportunity.
No, I'm just wondering, like everything, like from the top, like since everything's been rolled out and the timeline has been presented, like where do we stand? Like I'm curious just to see the progression and to know the progression that we're making, and it makes it more transparent for everybody. Thank you.
Yumiko, yep, thank you.
Yeah, Tasha, I wonder if this will help, and I'm going to pick on Marina a little bit, because we laid out all of these strategies, priorities, timelines in our strategic plan. And one of the additional things we just released on our website is what we're calling an implementation dashboard, where we are publicly reporting how we are progressing along these big priorities and timelines. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, Tasha, but it is a way to hold ourselves accountable and to show the public, right, that we are acting and moving along these timelines as we've put in here. Many of these are actually also statutorily required. So we have to report to the General Assembly how we are doing and whether we are meeting these goals and timelines as well. So that's another way we're held accountable to making sure that we're on track. And of course, all of you, right? I think through Dr. Medlock's briefings and us coming together every couple months at least to kind of walk through the priorities, that will be another way that we can talk about how on track we are.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely correct on that. I was just wondering, like, the transparency and just to keep us on track and keep us accountable, making sure that everything that we're doing and providing, we're practice what we're preaching, so we gain the trust of everyone. And so it's just a nice check-in to see where we're at. I'm not saying it has to be like done by this manner, but just what we've done. And I have read through all of that, so I am fully aware and educated on that. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Any further discussion on the 3-year plan? We've discussed that on the next agenda, we'll at least have a foundation of a 101. We've had a pretty thorough conversation today as to the spreadsheet. We'll continue to have conversations on the strategic plan and the spreadsheet. We understand low, medium, high, so to speak, as to our involvement. And once again, the state said it's fluid and it can change. And we might find that there's something more important because things change in our society here in Colorado, and that the document can go from low to high based on epidemic, based on mental health needs, based on what's happening in our Coloradan society. So what I heard today, it's fluid. What I heard today is the form is useful and it's helpful. And I do believe 101 will make the form and the structure of the form either more user-friendly for all task force members. To the
Bob,
state, yes.
Sorry, just quickly, Karen Lee has their hand up.
So much. I just wanted to offer a suggestion too, since I think the YouTube videos have been really helpful, that maybe we could do a little bit of a flipped classroom in between, because I do see a lot of March 2023, spring 2023, and our next meeting's not till the end of April, I believe. So if you all wanted to create a strategic planning 101, video for the advisory. I think that would be really helpful and sort of just level setting, and then people can come with questions or ask questions in between. And if there's time sensitive issues that you'd like our engagement on, I bet we'd all be open, and I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I would welcome if you had specific questions about any of the March or spring 2023 specific questions. I think being specific enough that it's easy for us to answer, right? And targeted enough with that sort of one-on-one briefing.
Thank you, Romney.
Can I
Great.
respond quickly, Bob? Sorry, I
Yeah.
hope I'm not getting us off track here.
No, I will get us on track. Don't worry about that. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. I love the idea of doing a video or something like that where we can do the strategic plan 101 in that area and then send it out to everyone. Maybe get it posted on a website like the BHAAC website so that public can access it as well. I will try to work on that in between now and our next meeting. I'm going to lean into Marina here a little bit, who knows more about boards and councils and the official rules. I don't know if we're allowed to like individually reach out to folks in that way, just because y'all are official council. And so, you know, usually decisions and things have to be made by votes and
Yeah,
right,
the training has
public
to be-
comment.
Yeah, the training has to be for all, and we all need to be present. That's just part of also what we've been discussing in our bylaws is we can't have break-off meetings without other members being present. So it has to be public, it has to be posted. Everyone has to have access to the meeting. So no, you're correct. You can't have individual sessions.
And we can talk a little bit more about that too. Kayron Lee, if you want to email me, we can kind of, there's some resources I can send around that.
I like the idea. I like the idea of the video and going in our Google Docs, even though I can't access it. But anyway, that's for another
okay,
agenda.
one more quick thing. So Robert, I saw your question in the chat. Yumiko is absolutely right. We want all of our BHAAC members to look at this spreadsheet and decide where you want your level of involvement to be. I will change the title of this column, I apologize, to be like opportunity for level of involvement, because this is really the BHA label. And what we want you folks to say is this is what we want it to be. So what I'll do is I will change that. I will also download a copy of this spreadsheet and email it out to all of the BHAAC members so that you each have your own individual one that you can make comments and notes in, set your priorities and rankings and things like that. So when we come back together, you're prepared with your own document. That might be helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great. I like the idea of the YouTube video. Great suggestion. All right, I'm going to call this part of the agenda. So last call on, is there any questions or dialogue at this point in time as to moving 101 to our next meeting? Some decisions will be happening in between as a potential video on 101 and other communications from the state, as we just heard. Is there anything before I call this part?
Bob, we have two hands up. Robert and Seth. So Robert, go ahead.
Robert, you had your hand up?
Yep, I would just like to say this. I feel like for so long, so many of us have sat on the sidelines, right? And so my anxiety is like, let's get this thing going. I've been on the JV bench for so long. Now I have an opportunity to play varsity. Put me in, coach. And so that's, I think, where you're feeling some of my sense of urgency, because I would like that side to say we have high involvement in everything. And so I just want to get going. You know, I've been on the bench for a while. You're giving me an opportunity to play first string, and I just want to get in it and play. So that's the anxiety, and kind of probably shouldn't have had an energy drink before this meeting either.
Well, we appreciate you and the energy drink that you had, because you're always a delight. So thank you, Rob. I think it was Tina next.
I just wanted to say peer support is really important to me. And I noticed that there's already some stuff that is being done in that area. And I would just want to make sure that if that's already in motion, that for me, that's one that I would want to really have involvement in.
All right, so a little bit of the homework is check out the dashboard to see where the progress is. So there's something we learned new about today. We will be receiving communication in an updated spreadsheet, and there will be a potential video. So at this point, I'm calling this part of the agenda. Thank you, everybody.
Bob, just quickly, when you send out the email spreadsheet, can you make the font or the print a little bit bigger? It's really small for me to read, and my eyesight is not the best. I would need a magnifying glass to like read all that. So if you could just make it a little bit bigger, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Absolutely,
Seth.
Thank you.
So Angelina, if there's a way we can make it a little bit more accommodating, let's discuss what we can do to do that with the form. Thank you again, Seth, for the suggestion. All right, this part of the agenda has been called. The next part of the agenda and the allotments that we have is our community updates in recovery, prevention, and treatment. This is also a chance for advisory members to ask any other additional questions that they need. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and call for information and updates from our prevention community. Any announcements anyone would like to share in prevention?
I will.
Please.
Like to announce that Hard Beauty opened another recovery community organization in Colorado Springs. So there is one in Castle Rock on I-25 right off the highway next to Santiago's Burritos, if that doesn't entice you. And the next one is in northern El Paso County. So we are getting that gap space in between Douglas County, El Paso County. We are on a bus line, access to services, bus passes, and public transportation. So it's a recovery community, has a coffee shop, come and sit, bring your people. Hope to see you soon.
Bob, I would also,
really something to celebrate.
sorry, I was just jumping in. Bob, also, we
Darn that energy drink.
yeah.
Come on, Robert.
No, sorry, at Crossroads.
Go ahead, Dr. Rob. What's up?
Sorry. Our prevention, our prevention department here at Crossroads is in Pueblo. We're in all the District 60 and 70 schools, but we recently got funded to hit the online schools. And so we've never done substance prevention using evidence-based curriculum. Now we're going to be working with Goal Academy and some of the online schools to do SUD prevention all the way across the board in every community that has an online school. So I think that's like a huge thing for us to be able to hit those online schools now.
Wow, that's great news. Yeah, prevention is key. We heard about that from Dr. Medlock today. Preventative is a very important part. Anything else from the community that has prevention updates or information? Let's move to recovery. Recovery community updates. That's substance misuse as well as mental health and co-occurring. So what is going on in Colorado's recovery community? Announcements, please. You're welcome, Rob. No more energy drinks. So what's going on in the recovery community? Seth.
I just want to say that I'm starting to see like more people in our online meetings, 12-step meetings. We're starting to see more people like come to the meetings because they're virtual and people don't have to like go to a physical meeting like in person and stuff. And so we're starting to see a lot of like new people getting clean or coming off of relapse. And we've had like some members of our community lose people to overdose deaths this year. And, you know, I lost 2 clients to overdose death last year. And So we're all talking more about, you know, ways to carry Narcan, ways to like be accessible, and ways to like have recovery interventions without being penile. I don't know if that's a word or not, but without being penalty. And I want to say Aurora Mental Health is basically now Aurora Mental Health and Recovery, and we are putting a huge emphasis on building a 24-hour campus in the next couple years. And it's going to be located in Aurora, and it's going to be like have a medical clinic, a recovery program, and housing. And the detox will be there, the crisis center will be there, and it's on good schedule. And we're getting more involved in the ways of being a recovery establishment too, not just mental health. So we're doing a lot of programs and doing a lot of things with substance use and abuse too, and co-occurring disorder or orders. So yeah.
Thank you, Seth. Any other updates out of the recovery community announcements? Tasha?
Yes, this is Tasha Conker. I noticed that there was before, like, when it comes to non-medical transportation and stuff like that, to handle business, to get like your business taken care of, to get into recovery supports and stuff, was only limited with Medicaid up to like 10 miles. They have expanded the mileage, so that makes it more accessible to people that live outside that 10-mile radius to get to where they need to go to handle all the support system. So I do have to say thank you for that. And also the state's really showing that they're broadening the horizons and opening up that gap so people outside those limitations that we have on Medicaid and stuff like that are able to get the access that they need. So thank you.
Medicaid, yep, Medicaid non-medical, that's a great announcement. There's zone 1, 2, and 3. All 3 zones have different mileages associated with it, but there is a zone 3, which is well past, I think, 30 miles, which is amazing. The other important great announcement is Uber, starting in 2024, will have be connected to Colorado Medicaid, and that passed, and that will start July 1st. And Uber's already running in conjunction with Accessoride. So if you can't take Accessoride, you can take Uber, and it gets charged against RTD. So look at the website on that. So thanks, Tasha. Yeah, there's some great mobility things that have recently changed for us, which is giving people better access. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
You're welcome. And just to clarify, is the RTD, like with Uber and stuff like that, is that statewide, or is that just limited to certain regions? Like I know Denver and Denver metro suburbs and stuff like that, they have the RTD up there, unlike where Colorado Springs.
It runs in conjunction where disability vehicles run. So if there's
awesome.
Disability RTD and there's an Uber Transit in that area, you download the application and you go through the process and turn it in, and you get your Uber disability transportation card.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Colorado's doing awesome things. Thank you.
And then it's a full program in 2024.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so very much, Bob, for the transparency on that.
Mr. Seth?
Yes, this is Seth Watkins. Just so everybody knows, I was in a commercial report about Medicaid redetermination is going to be ending on May 11th for basically a lot of people with Medicaid who might have to make sure that their income and addresses and all that stuff is up to date with the state Medicaid Health First Colorado programs. Some people are going to start getting letters that say this is your time of the year in the next 14 months that you have to submit your redetermination papers. So it's not all at once, it's over 14 months that everybody that had Medicaid while during the pandemic who no longer qualifies for Medicaid will then have to either have a reapplication and qualify or look into other health insurance options in Colorado. And for those that have a disability, mental or physical, if you make too much money and you still need services of Medicaid, you could participate in the buy-in program, which will allow you to like get the same benefits as Medicaid for like $90 to $120 per month. And then if you're part of some other subsidized like stuff, like the AIDS drug assistance program, like will pay for your $90 premium so that you pay $0 for, you know, Medicaid and to be on Medicaid. But May 11th, the presidential proclamation health emergency is ending for all programs. So just be aware of that date if you start getting letters or things in the mail. So yeah.
Public health emergency ends in May. Seth is correct. So there's a lot of letters going out to Medicaid consumers and information. Anything else in recovery before I move on to treatment, given our time is running short? All right. Treatment community, yes.
Oh, I thought Carolyn maybe had her hand up.
Hi, yes, I do. And I can kind of speak, I want to speak a little bit from the Colorado support line because we had 1K in 17 hours of people calling in for the Colorado support line for the state of Colorado. And we're hiring a whole bunch more people because the demand is going up so high, which, you know, lets us know that people are really happy with us. And I think it looks like we're going to be heading towards people having an option as being able to talk to peer support for the 988. I mean, this is what my hope is, and this is how I'm hoping that it's moving towards. So I'm really excited about that. And I just wanted to share with you how the Colorado support line is doing in Colorado.
Wow, thank you for that update. That's amazing. I'm glad. I guess we have to hire more, but also still very concerned. Thank you for that. And we'll continue to talk about the Medicaid, which is extremely important to all of us, and the public health orders that are wrapping up, which will affect everyone. So, all right, I'm going to call for treatment information. What's going on in our treatment community, friends? Announcements, please. We have no updates out of the treatment community. All right. The last part of our agenda, is there anything that we need to discuss today that we haven't discussed that people have lingering questions on with the time remaining? Now is the time to get further clarification. This is that part of the agenda that I want to make sure everybody is heard and gets their questions answered. Is there anything left undone or anyone having a question before I adjourn us?
Bob, you have a couple of hands up, and Seth is first. Seth, go ahead.
Seth.
Yeah, this is Seth. I was wanting to like have like an announcement of like the dates and times of the executive committee and the governance subcommittee for the bylaws to like be announced, because I know that one is like every other Thursday, and I haven't been to the executive one because like I don't know when it's meeting and what day and time has been chosen. So it's like I haven't been able to be there, and I would like to be there. And I would also like encourage if anybody else wants to join any of these committees. I know we're all encouraged to lead a committee or lead a subgroup at some point in our tenure, but I mean, just being involved with, you know, these two committees right now or other committees as they come along is a great way to learn what's happening behind the scenes and what's happening in these committees. So if you want to volunteer for something, I think there should be a way to have people added to those committees or?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Seth. I think I'm gonna hold questions because I think Angelina probably has a quick answer to Seth's, which might resolve other people's questions. Angelina?
Thank you, Bob. So Yumiko did put in the chat, we now have an events calendar for that's specific to the BHA. So the link in the chat will take folks to that. That's where you'll be able to see all of the BHA Advisory Council meetings, your meetings. You'll be able to see all of the governance committee meetings run by Tasha and the other folks who volunteered for that. For executive committee, Seth, we don't have a regular schedule yet, but as soon as we know what the cadence of those meetings will be, that will be up on the public calendar as well. So right now, just for clarity's sake, so folks know, the executive committee has only met once, and that was before this meeting to plan this agenda and talk about the charter. So once we meet a second time, I'm sure we'll figure out schedule for that with the team, and then we will get that on the calendar immediately.
Great. If that answered your questions, please put down your hands so I can make sure I get to everyone in the time that we have left. Do I have any other hands?
Yes, there's Tasha and Renee Anderson. Tasha, go ahead.
My name is Tasha, they, them. My question is for the state or for the Behavioral Health Administration or Dr. Morgan Metlock. What is the state's plan to do with the shortage of certain medications, of behavioral medications that people are needing to stay stable, because this is becoming an issue with not just myself, but with tons of Coloradoans.
Thank you, Tasha, for the very
Thank you.
important. Dr. Madlock?
Thank you for that question. I want to just make sure that everyone can hear me. I've switched to a different device here.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Tasha, thank you for that. I think that if you wouldn't mind just privately letting us know if this is an issue with a particular pharmacy versus your particular insurance, that would be helpful so that we can know if we need to work with our Medicaid partners on this particular issue. I'm happy to review what I can once we get specifics on what the nature of the issue is. And I suggest that if you could kindly send an email so that you can clarify, is this a specific pharmacy issue or is this an issue with Medicaid pre-authorization?
This is an issue with the drug manufacturers having a shortage of medications, not producing medications, and that's and people are having to try to pill chase for their kids' care, not only their kids' care, but even individuals like me with disabilities to chase pills at different pharmacies to try to get the behavioral health medications they need to stay stable.
Unfortunately, I have to second what Tasha's saying with my 3 sons. There's been shortages that have gotten better. During the pandemic, it was pretty bad, but we still have to wait sometimes 5 to 7 days to get things filled when you're out. So Tasha's correct. I can definitely speak to that as myself. There's a lot of psychotropic medications we can't get our hands on.
Thank you for that clarification. I will review this matter with our partners in the health cabinet. I think our next meeting is actually next week. Thank you.
And then psychiatry is switching our medications to medications we can get, which is causing some behavioral health issues as well because of the shortages. So thanks for bringing that up, Tasha. I think that was a
You're
really
welcome.
key community point.
That's
Thank
lived
you.
experience with
Yes,
me right
it
now.
is.
That's raw lived experience right here on what I'm going through. So thank you
right.
for allowing
Well,
me to bring this up.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or dialogue before I call time?
Yes, Renee Anderson has her hand up.
Renee.
Hold up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. My computer was doing something weird. So I was just wanting to know if the the links that are in the chat, could they be sent in an email? Copying and pasting is kind of being a pain right now.
Yes, this is Angelina from the BHA. I will make sure that whatever links we've included in the chat will come along with my follow-up email to all the BHAC members. And for folks in the public, we typically try to make sure that our links are copied in the PowerPoint, which gets posted on the BHAC website.
Thank you.
Just quickly, for the medication issue problem, I was having that with like Walgreens, like pharmacies before. So I actually switched my medications to the UC Health like pharmacies that are on the 7th floor and like at the Atrium pharmacy, and they tend to not run out of medications so much, and they will send them in the mail if you have a doctor provided there. So if you want to maybe switch to a hospital pharmacy, they might have more access to medications than regular pharmacies.
The medications are controlled, Schedule 2 controlled substances that are used to treat behavioral disorders, and not only myself but children. And this is a major thing.
They have psychiatrists at UC Health too, like at some of the clinics, and that's how I get all my behavioral health medications and diabetes medications and everything. I'm able to get it through the hospital pharmacies, and I can always get it in advance or on time. So,
well, thank you for the tip. So if there's further medication issues, which we do know that they are going around a lot, I do see one of our Ray directors is chatting inside our chat box. This is a significant issue, and I am greatly appreciative to the tip, Seth, and Tasha. So what I'm going to recommend to all of us, because it's affecting my family as well, is maybe we can just set a Zoom meeting just specifically to talk about this, so we can get a spreadsheet of information and things that are happening, so we can get that to the medical cabinet for Dr. Madlock. So I'll talk to the state to see if this is possible, but this is one of these priorities with our strategic plan that could go too high as to access to medications. So this is, again, why this advisory body is important, because many of us are experiencing this and there's ways to solve it. So thank you, everyone. Look for an email on that, because I think the medication issue is important. And our chief medical person is a psychiatrist and knows the importance. So at this point in time, I would like someone to put a motion to the floor to adjourn.
I motion. Tasha Conker.
Thank you. Second?
I
There's
second
a
it.
hand up from Cameron D.L.
Cameron?
Hi, yeah, sorry, I was putting it in the chat as well, but if helpful, just a reminder, we're in the middle of our legislative session. And if you want to get involved, in your own time with this, there is a bill for mental health Medicaid step therapy that would prohibit HCPF, or I'm sorry, the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, the department that administers Medicaid, from requiring prior authorization or that fail first step therapy requirements for any prescription drugs indicated to treat a serious mental health disorder. So basically letting your doctor be able to prescribe you what you actually need. You could reach out to me if you want to learn more about that bill.
Extremely important bill, by the way, for everyone. I'm very supportive of it. So at this point, we have reached our commitment. We've had a fantastic meeting today. Stay warm, stay healthy, take care of yourselves, practice what we practice, and great meeting today, and take care, everyone, and look forward communication from all of us, myself, Raquel, and the state, as to the things that you've asked for from us. So again, thank you for your time today. This meeting is now adjourned and the recording can stop.